Today on the Tree of Life, let's talk about number 2 and number 3, Chakma and Binah, and the energies associated with those Sephira. Let's start with Chakma, number 2, the supreme male, and the connections going to that. First, you have the Fool, which is connecting up to Keter, the supreme oneness. And so your first start of your journey, also known as the prodigal son, is coming down here to Chakma. And then you have some very male energies connecting this. You have the Emperor, who is strong, but also liable to make mistakes from his firmness, and that connects down to Tipperet, which is yourself or your center. And then you also have the Hierophant, the embodiment of wisdom, connecting from Chakma down to Hesed, down to mercy. Chakma is sometimes represented as the sun or the fixed stars or the sphere of the zodiac, but more often as Neptune, the mystic, and can be seen as the reflection of not self or as the throne, and in terms of alchemy, as the dissolver and coagulator. So water, projection, movement, change, which would be represented by Proteus in my own little system, the water god of change. And now let's look at all of the cards associated with this number 2. Here's the 4 decks we'll be using today. This is Robert Place's alchemical deck. Here is the Hermetic deck based on the Golden Dawn. Then in the corner, of course, is Crowley's deck drawn by Lady Frida Harris. And then this is the New Orleans Voodoo deck, which is my favorite deck to come out of the African diaspora religions. So to the Golden Dawn, the 2 of Swords was the Lord of Peace restored. You can see the crossed swords. Similarly, in the alchemical deck, this is the Duel with the Owl of Wisdom. So it's debate, active questioning, seeking wisdom. Then Nana Buklou, who is the grandmother, the 0 equals 2 act of creation, with 0 being the womb, and then her giving birth to everything. She is also seen as a fearless and superlative warrior. Then the 2 of Fire, or the 2 of Staffs, which the Golden Dawn would have called the Lord of Dominion, Crowley would refer to as will in its most exalted form. And Robert Place would see the 2 connected torches of Hermes and Aphrodite in a fiery passion where lovers get lost in one another. And then Nana Buklou La Flambeau, the fiery version of her, and this is seen as the fire that both powers the universe as well as the individual, and the fire at the heart of stars as well as the hearth fire. Then the 2 of Water, or the 2 of Cups, which the Golden Dawn would have called the Lord of Love. Crowley said you could refer to this as the Lord of Love under will. So it's really your will moving the love. And also that this card is in Venus, in Cancer, and in the House of the Moon, and in the House of the Moon, the sign of Jupiter is the most exalted. So these are superficially 3 of the most friendly planets. And so it's very much a warm, loving card. In the alchemical deck, it is 2 lovers with the Rose of Perfection over them, which would include the energies of attraction, lust, sex, and cooperation. And then Gran Ebo is the wise old woman of the swamp, and so within her she has the rhythms characterized by age and patience. She is a voodooist, and this card is linked to healing, and she is the heart of the forest itself. You can also see a yellow canary whispering into her ear because she speaks the language of all animals and is associated with the wisdom of the first of things. The 2 of Earth, or the 2 of Discs or Pentacles, the Golden Dawn would have called the Lord of Harmonious Change, and that looks similarly in Crowley's deck. You could see that as the yin and yang and the harmonious interplay of the 4 elements. In fact, he said that this card could represent the complete manifested universe. In alchemical terms, this could be referred to as the fixation of the volatile. The lion represents the fixed, and then the eagle represents the volatile, and you can see how they move and change. Alofi is the personal deity of this planet, and all of the energy that flows through her is what flows through all of the living things and all of the cycles of the planet. Of course, this means she is the epitome of change, of the stability and the flux needed for a planet to exist. Then we have Binah, the supreme female, who could also be referred to as understanding, and for the 3 energies connected to her, you have the magician, which connects up to Keter, the oneness, and so this is the 2nd step on the tarot. And then going down, you have the chariot, which connects to Gebura. And so the chariot is control of self, your mind, your body, and your spirit trying to guide them. And it's interesting, the supreme female connects down to Gebura, who is a very masculine, heavy Mars force. And so often the supreme female enters the world as a strong male. And then you also have the energy of the lovers connecting down to Tiperet, which could be seen as yourself. And I like that Place has two different lovers cards, one more graphic than the other. He just included them both. But it's a very understanding, necessary to combine the male and the female and take that energy into yourself. Binah can be represented by the moon, as well as the sphere of Saturn. She is referred to sometimes as a throne of mercy and home of the great sea, promising birth and continuation. Also the element of air, but very much sex and death. As it said, the womb and the tomb walk hand in hand. So she continues into the invisible and the visible world, and so it's the grace of sex that births us into the world, and the grace of death that births us into the invisible world. So she is also associated with passages and initiations. Or a way that I like it said in the Ifa tradition, our bodies eat of the earth and then are eaten by the earth. And now we'll look at the energies associated with Binah. This is the Three of Air, or the Three of Swords. The Golden Dawn referred to this as the Lord of Sorrow. Crowley also called it sorrow. But this is the sorrow of the Buddha. This is the high-level sorrow for the universe. And so it's a dark, heavy card of birthing, because sometimes you birth monsters out of this chaos. And so for Crowley, this is the great sword of the magician that is there to cut through the junctions and to understand what's happening in this implacable night. Alchemically, this would be the bleeding heart, where the eye is consciousness and the rose is perfection. And so this would be associated with pain, suffering, and heartache. This is Papa Gouda, who it said that lust's bright ember shines within the darkness of the grave. He has a light step and laughs a lot and has a tendency to bring out revelations in public that might be embarrassing. And his glasses have one clear lens and one smoky lens for viewing into the visible world and also viewing into the invisible world. You could see him as the opposite of the fool. He is deep in introspection, and his only companion is a beetle. His focus is on the night of the soul. For the Three of Fire, or the Three of Wands, the Golden Dawn referred to as the Lord of Established Strength, and Crowley called virtue. And so he saw this as the will being transmitted to the mother, who conceives it and prepares to it and births the manifestation of the will. So this is a very harmonious card, and Crowley has linked it to the 11th hexagram of the I Ching, which is sometimes translated as peace or harmonious. Robert Place has a boat, which is guided by an eye. This represents a new wave or reinforcements or replenishments. This is Gouda Flambeau, who is a Loa who shines bright in both the womb and the tomb. You could see him being associated with Lucifer, the bright angel of the morning, and even more so with the little death, the flashing brilliance of orgasm. He represents sexual excitement as a burning furnace. For the Three of Water, or the Three of Cups, the Lord of Abundance, which Crowley called the fulfillment of the will in love in abounding joy. So this is a spiritual basis of fertility. The pomegranates are the fruits that locked Persephone, the springtime, for half of her life down in Hades. He says the lesson here is that the good things of life should be enjoyed, but they should also be distrusted. Robert Place has this as the support group, which are the three women carrying the elements not of this suit. And so they represent friends or support. Mama Bridget is married to Gouda and rules the cemetery with him. She is also renowned as a judge and a lawyer. For a voodooist, she is one of the highest powers that you can plead your case before. She represents change, and so she is closely related with Kali, who also is someone who forces change. For the Three of Earth, or the Three of Discs, you have the Lord of Material Work, and to Crowley, that triangle is the salt, sulfur, and mercury, the three elements that make the entire world go round. Similarly, in the alchemical deck, that is an artist working with sulfur, salt, and mercury, and so that is creative work that earns a living. It also represents observation. And finally, Oya, the great Orisha of the wind, womb and tomb for sure. As mother of the storm, she carries lightning in her hand. She's also the patron of the women who work in the marketplace. So there's a little bit about Hakma and Binah, and they are joined by the Empress, or the Papess, who holds the yin and yang in her hand.